So I hear your guys' reviews 100%, and Nathan, I'm actually in line with your perspective on this one for slightly different reasons. I loved the opening of this movie when it's that CGI shot that like goes
Mm,
around, that zooms in on
into the
Australia and
green
goes
place?
into the canyon of the green place. The beginning of the film when she's plucked away from her home and she's tracked down by her mother. I was like
Mhm.
watching that and I was thinking to myself, this is the best Mad Max I've ever seen. Like this movie starts off perfectly. And
I actually think that's one of the most interesting new versions of a chase sequence we've seen George Miller do. Like, that's a
yes, yeah.
silent movie, two-person chase. It's
Yep.
pared down, it's super strong.
It's pared down,
Mhm.
it's super
Mhm.
strong, it's elemental, it was very suspenseful.
Mm.
And so I liked this movie. I definitely enjoyed this movie and like a lot of like all of your points, like I definitely agree with that. I think for me, the issue is like Nathan, I am on your page with the sort of like Miller and the kitchen sink thing. The other thing I think for me is this movie is go tries to go towards the epic, and it goes towards a coming of age epic where we see Furiosa
Mm.
become who she is. And to me, I both love it and I also find it frustrating because it's almost there, but there's a bit of a montage style to this film where the film is divided up into chapters, which was a device that I didn't mind. And even though these are totally different films, bear with me for a second because I have a point. But when you see a film like Barry Lyndon or
Mhm.
Gladiator or even Lawrence of Arabia, where these characters are kind of blown around by the wind through forces and they grow and things happen, those a lot of those movies to me progress perfectly. And for me, I think my main issue with this film is that we would follow Furiosa, a scene would develop, and right at a moment where I needed some connective tissue, it would fade out and dissolve to the next chapter. And I felt a little deprived of in between sequences that I wanted to see. For example, one of them, Furiosa, she's going to be one of the wives, and the horror of her being impregnated and that terrible, she escapes, she climbs down the thing. We see the passage of time where a tree branch is growing in fast time motion, and all of a sudden she's a war boy, and no one noticed that she
Notice her.
vanished. And
Yeah.
the connective tissue, those pieces in between of her scaling the rest of that cliff, maybe hiding in those grungy caves where those people are like feeding off
Yeah.
maggots, I wanted a little bit of
Mm.
that connective tissue. And so this film, to me, when you said, Nathan, where the parts are greater than the sum of the whole, I think part of the reason for that is it has these excellent parts, but the totality of the whole doesn't quite add up for me. Perfect example, you've got that excellent set piece in the middle of the film where it's her and Praetorian Jack, and the faction that's against the war rig is coming in on those like parasailing, they're flying
Yep.
in. It's a great action scene,
Amazing.
but it's a little bit nebulous and episodic. And one of the things about Fury
Yeah.
Road that I like is because it's driven by the plot. She takes the war rig and she takes Morton Joe's wives, and he's like, "Holy shit! Send everyone after her." It's story oriented. This in this film was just an action set piece that's great, but the consequences were a little bit low to me because they'll just kill off this side faction, and it's just a setup for
The
her and
two-villain
Jack
problem.
to like unite and get close. So I felt
Mhm.
not quite manipulated by that, but if there was a story reason, if the stakes were emotionally higher for that. And so what I feel with this movie is I get a bunch of scenes that are all awesome. I like Chris Hemsworth. I actually thought Chris Hemsworth was excellent. I love his speech in the wasteland towards the end of the film where he's like, nothing means anything. We're all in hell and this and that. But again, there's something about this movie that feels like five great chapters. And if they'd gotten rid of the chapter structure and created a screenplay that just where the story tissue just organically moved from one piece to the next, just a little bit smoother, this could have been the greatest epic in the entire Mad Max saga. And to me, it slightly misses the mark. I was highly entertained. I
Mhm.
really enjoyed it, but I just could not deny this feeling that I was having in the theater of I just feel a little bit of an emotional disconnect from this.